Okay, so let's start. So firstly, thank you very much for joining on our webinar out of your busy schedule. My name is Satoshi Takayama, one of the co-founder of our company, Fenetre Partners. And another co-founder is Yasushi Hasegawa. He will do the main part of this presentation after my company introduction. The topic of this webinar is doing business in Japan. And in this presentation, we will explain key sectors, market opportunities, and challenges in doing business in Japan. But firstly, I'd like to inform you that at the bottom of this Zoom screen, you can find Q&A panel. So during our presentation, if you have questions about our presentation or Japanese business in general, please type and send your question message during our presentation. Then we will answer to your question during the presentation or at the last part of this presentation. If we cannot answer all the questions, we will answer to your questions later by email. Also, if you have any specific question about certain industry or about your company's business in Japan, please contact us by email to reserve a separate online meeting. You can find Yasushi's email address in the invitation email of this Zoom webinar. We are happy to answer to your questions and support your future business in Japan. Also, after the seminar, if you'd like to have a presentation material or recording, please send a message, email to Yasushi, then we can send them to you later. Okay, then Yasushi, please go to the next page. This page shows today's agenda. Yasushi will firstly explain the overview of Japanese economy and industry, and also the impact of corona pandemic in Japan. Then, as we think there are two growing sectors in Japan, we will explain both of them. One is Japanese big global manufacturers, and also another target is a solution for aging population in Japan. Even though you find such opportunities in Japan, there are challenges for doing business in Japan. For example, entry barriers such as language, culture, distribution, such kind of things. So we will explain these challenges so that you will be well prepared for them. Then we will explain our recommendation of what is good fit for Japan. And at the last part of the webinar, we will answer to your questions as many as possible. And please go to the next page. With this page, I'd like to introduce our company briefly. Our company, Fenetre Partners, is one of the leading consulting firms of trade, investment, and international marketing. Our office is located in Tokyo, in the center of Tokyo. Our clients are mostly medium to large size of companies, mainly from Europe and the US, but we also have clients from Asia. We also have many clients of overseas governmental organizations to support trade missions and foreign direct investment. The main scope of our services is the market entry support to enter Japan, but it's not only about the market researches or consulting services, but by implementation. And implementation means, for example, doing business development and lead generation. And this is our company's strength. What we mainly do with this implementation is, for example, sales and marketing activities locally in Japan on behalf of our clients. So we work as if we are your local Japanese branch office. We currently have 28 staff, and we have worked on more than 250 international projects since our company was established, 2008. Then please go to the next page. This page shows logos of our past and current clients. Most of our clients are manufacturing companies, but you also find logos of overseas governments such as Birmingham from the UK and Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Michigan from the US. We work for these governmental organizations to promote the foreign direct investment from Japan to these cities or states. We also work for them to promote the export from these states to Japan by supporting their local companies in these states in order to find their Japanese distributors. So far, I explained today's agenda and our company outline. From this page, my colleague Yasushi will explain the main topic of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. This is another co-founder of Fenetre Partners, Yasushi Hasegawa. I'd like to start with explaining overview of Japan economy and industry. Before getting to the topic, I'd like to share the status of Corona in Japan. Actually, our government announced the state of emergency on April 7, and that finished May 25. It worked out, and the number of infections had declined, but recently it has restarted increasing. And now the government is considering another state of emergency additionally. But the good news is still the number of deaths in Japan is very low, which is less than 1% of the US. So, and nowadays, most of the patients are in the age group of 20s or 30s. So they don't have serious symptoms, and most of our hospitals still have a large capacity of having more patients. So I don't think it's a serious case. So I like to believe it's just on the process of getting social immune, as Sweden is doing. So probably we will have the second peak maybe, and the third peak. But the situation in Japan would be much better than the US and Europe. So I like to say, I think it's making sense that you restart your business development in Asia, including Japan, rather than the US and Europe. So, but still, it's prohibited that you travel to Japan. Hopefully, it will be lift up maybe after summer. So, okay, let's start about our overview of Japanese economy and society. Japan consists of 47 prefectures, which is like states. The biggest one is Tokyo, and Osaka, Aichi follows. And some difference from Europe and the US is everything is concentrated in big cities. While in Europe and the US, many functions are scattered all over the countries. Like in the UK, the financial sector is concentrated in London, but the advanced engineerings are scattered in mid to North UK. But in Japan, everything is concentrated in big cities. The land area is almost same with Germany or California. Not big, but it's very long from north to south. The Hokkaido is famous with ski resort. So many Chinese tourists from China go there. And such part is Okinawa, which is famous with big US base. The weather there is like a semi-tropical. So you need to spend a few hours from Tokyo to south and north. But I think it's convenient to take a bullet train or a flight. And so most of our clients have only one salesperson in Tokyo, and that is a very smart model or a small start. And the population is over 100 million, and the GDP is still world number 3. Actually, China has overtaken Japan about 10 years ago, but Japan is still ranked number 3. But GDP growth is very low. It's always between 0 and 1, sometimes minus. Probably this year, it could be -0%, unfortunately, but it's not only in Japan. The most shocking data is here. GDP per capita. It's just 40,000 US dollars. Actually, Japan was ranked world number 2 20 years ago, but now it's ranked 26. Still, some people believe Japan is a rich country, but it's not true. Japan is getting poorer and poorer. So sometimes people still, have images of Japan in 1980s and 90s, but it's different. Let's move to the next slide. This is our GDP of Japan. Unfortunately, we have almost no growth in the last 3 decades. In 1970s, 80s, 90s, Japan was really growing. In 1980s, Japan bashing happened in the US. Some American laborers destroyed the Japanese car to complain Japan is doing the unfair export. But in this century, Japan passing happened. So people fly over Japan to China or India. So this is the reality of Japan. But nowadays, our government is announcing that our economy is growing, but the reality is just recovering. Please remember what happened here in 2008. Big, financial crisis happened, not only in Japan, but everywhere. And in 2011, we had the big earthquake with a nuclear incident. The number of victims was 20,000 at the time. So our economy was bottom. So during that period, nobody wanted to choose Japan as the destination, but it's gradually recovering. So I think it's a good timing to consider Japan as your destination again. The next slide shows the population. Actually, it's peaked out in 2008. And it's dramatically decreasing, unfortunately. And this red line shows the percentage of elder people whose ages are over 65 years old. It means about 1/3 of our population is going to be elders. So it means young people have to bear the big cost for pension. So it's not a good idea for young Japanese. So this situation is a really serious problem in our society because it means we are losing the number of consumers and workforce at the same time, which is really, bad effect on our economy. And this is a famous framework to see the industry life cycle. So usually industry, starts growing like this, and finally it's dying like our human life. So Japan was growing in 1970s, 80s, and reached the ceiling in the 90s. And in this century, almost no growth, or recently, most industry are shrinking rapidly. The typical case is a department store. The size of sales of department store in Japan has declined by 50% in the last 2 or 3 decades. It's become half size. And furniture market is almost same. Wedding market, same. Many industries are dramatically shrinking. So if you sell normal products to normal consumers, definitely Japan is not a good destination. Of course, it's different from each industry. Some IT sectors are still growing in Japan, but traditional market segments are declining. And at the maturity stage, oligopoly usually happens, meaning most of the markets are dominated by several strong local and international players, which is very difficult to enter because the market structure is really fixed. If you try to find a distributor during this period, you can easily find a good distributor because a local distributor is seeking new products and new suppliers in order to meet the growing demand during this period. But when the market is shrinking, the opposite things are happening. They are trying to reduce the number of inventory and suppliers in order to reduce costs. So in some industries in Japan, it's super difficult to find a good distributor. So that is a reality of Japan. So I think many of you guys are disappointed with the Japanese economy. Japan is not a rich country, but really crowded by many competitors, which have entered Japan in 1980s, 90s. So if you sell to average consumers, I don't recommend Japan at all. The worst target segment is young rich. In Japan, there's a unique HR system, which are lifetime employment and seniority payment. Which means your performance doesn't matter. So your young people earn very small money. So if you try to find young rich people in Japan, it'll be in vain, unfortunately. However, still some sectors are really attractive. Actually, our firm is growing steadily with an annual growth rate of between 20 to 30% nowadays. In the past, the growth rate was 50 to 60% because so many companies they start considering Japan as their destination. So I can say Japan could be a good destination for some types of products, but it could be the worst choice. So I'd like to explain some good sectors in the following slides. So the key questions are your Japanese customers growing by global expansion? Another one is, can your products solve problems about the aging of society? So let's move to the growing sector. The first one is big global manufacturers. So I think this is a good example to understand the Japanese industry in general. This is a number of cars sold in Japan. So about 30 years ago, it was about 8 million, but nowadays about 5 million. So I think it's a dramatic decline. But my question is, do you think the Japanese automotive companies are doing well or not doing well? The answer is on the next slide. Actually, this is a list of growing manufacturers, top 20, in the period between 2005 and 2014. You can find the big names, Toyota, Honda, Nissan. Actually, their sales in the domestic market is not growing at all, but they are growing by global expansion. It doesn't happen only in automotive. You can also see so many different type of companies like Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, Bridgestone is a tire company, Daikin for air conditioner, Sumitomo Chemical, Sony is still growing. I know you have some impression on Sony that Samsung or Huawei from China have overtaken Sony in some sectors, but Sony is still growing. Toshiba, Mitsubishi Electronic, Astras is a big pharmaceutical. So many Japanese companies are growing in this period. So please remember what happened during that period. Big financial crisis and big earthquake. It was the worst time for Japan, but they were growing. The secret is here, overseas sales ratio. So Toyota earns about 80% of sales from outside Japan. Honda has 86% from outside Japan. So most of the big Japanese companies are now earning much more money outside Japan than the domestic market. So if your target companies are those big manufacturers, it's meaningless to think about the size of the domestic market because their main markets are outside Japan, like in the US, Europe, China, sometimes in India. So this is a very interesting research, which is done by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Germany, their Japan office. They distributed a questionnaire to their membership, German companies located in Japan. They are asking which is bigger, A or B. B is the sales revenue from the Japanese subsidiary from a Japanese customer located in Japan. The B is sales from Japanese customers located worldwide or outside Japan. And surprisingly, about half of them answered A is bigger than B. So, they invested in Japan for hiring sales, but mostly, they earn money from outside Japan. And it's more surprisingly, 20% said A is 4 times bigger than B. So actually, they invested in Japan, but they earn more outside Japan. This is a reality of Japanese global manufacturers. So once you get into a business with a Japanese company, it means you can get more businesses from Japanese companies outside Japan in the global market. Now you might think you can sell to their subsidiaries like Toyota USA or Toyota Europe directly, but it's wrong. Organizational culture in Japan is really centralized. So if you try to contact their subsidiaries, they just say, please go to Japan. We don't have any authority to make a decision to replace the existing components by yours. So this is a typical response to your call. Of course, some simple products can be purchased locally, but some important products for a Japanese manufacturer is always chosen by engineers in headquarters in Japan. For example, in the case of automotive, some engine filter for eco-friendly and energy efficiency, sensor for safety, autonomous driving, and those type of new technology is always chosen in Japan. So unfortunately, it's meaningless to contact their subsidiaries in Europe or the US. So if you target those big Japanese manufacturers, you should do business development in Japan. This is an additional bonus if you do business development in Japan. This table shows the FDI stock in Asian countries. These guys are destinations, and these guys are investors. So you can find Japan is #1 or sometimes #2 investors in those Asian countries, which means if you do business development in those Asian countries, you often encounter Japanese companies, but they can't make a decision to purchase your products. So if you try to develop those markets, it's great making sense that you do sales development as well in Japan. In that case, once you close a deal in Japan, you can deliver to their subsidiaries in other Asian markets. So on this slide, there are some examples of growing big manufacturers. Regardless to say, automotive is the biggest industry of Japan. I don't explain everything, but about 30% of the global market is occupied by the big Japanese brands. So if you are selling to automotive, but you haven't had any business with Japanese companies, which means you are losing 1/3 of the global market. And the next one is the construction machinery. Many Japanese companies have a high market share in particular products. So I can say the same thing about construction machinery. You should not miss Japanese big players. The last one is robotics and automation. Surprisingly, 60% of world industrial robots are provided by Japanese companies. So if you are selling to robotics or automation, you should not miss Japan. This is the first attractive target segment. On the following slides, I would like to explain the next target sector, which is solutions for aging population. This is a chart about social security related expenditures in Japan. It's gradually increasing, and it is predicted this could be about 1/4 of our GDP. Probably Japan will go bankrupt at the time. I hope it doesn't happen, but it shows healthcare, including medical and elderly care, is expected to keep growing. This is another big growing market in Japan. And this is a chart of working population. Unfortunately, it is dramatically declining. So actually, it has started a decade ago. Our population has started declining, and nowadays you can see many foreigners working at the convenience store, bars, fast food restaurants. Mainly they are students from other Asian countries. So now many Japanese companies are facing the lack of labor, especially in blue collar, in service sector, in other words. So if your product can solve this problem by raising productivity, mainly in service sector, you will have a lot of opportunities in Japan. So those are some examples. The first one is the healthcare and medical. So medical device market is growing, and it has increased by 50% in the last 15 years. And actually, in many advanced engineering market, local players are very strong in Japan, but medical device is an exception. Half of our products are imported mainly from the US and Europe. So if you are selling the kind of products for medical purposes, Japan is definitely the good target market. And another sector is IT and robotics. So again, many companies are facing the serious problem of lack of labor, especially in service sector like logistics, retailing, services, agriculture, medical, construction, and solutions like IoT, AI, big data, RPA. Those guys are really demanded. So, and those technologies are expected to keep growing in the coming several years. So if you have the kind of unique technology to raise productivity in service sectors, Japan is definitely one of the most attractive markets in the world. So I've finished my presentation about target sectors. So I hope some of you guys target those sectors, and hopefully you guys are not really disappointed with Japan. Now I'd like to start talking about challenges for doing business in Japan. To be honest, it's not easy for European and American to be successful in Japan. So big entry barriers are classified into the 3 categories: language, business culture, and distribution channel. The first one is language. If you've been to Japan, probably you get familiar with the situation. I think 1% of population can speak English. In the center of Tokyo, probably the percentage would be higher, but in the local area, I think nobody speaks English. So if you try to develop your customers, sending an email in English is really tough work. If you send 100, probably you can get 1 or 2 reply, or might be 0. And please do not make a phone call in English to a Japanese company. You just make them panic. So it's not a good approach. So sometimes you're lucky enough to find a good English-speaking customer, but the problem is their bosses wouldn't be able to speak. So you have to submit all the documents in Japanese because your counterperson is not happy to translate everything. So this is a reality of Japan. And myself is a good example. I know my English is not very good, but I'm thought to be an advanced speaker in Japan. If I say I'm speaking in English at a webinar with in front of many native speakers in Japan, people say, "Wow, it's a advanced speaker," and that is a reality of Japan. So you need to hire someone who speaks and writes Japanese when you try to contact Japanese potential customers or distributors. The next one is business culture. I want to explain this framework, which is a cultural dimension developed by Hosted. It consists of 6 dimensions, but I would like to focus on 3 dimensions where Japan has the highest score in the world. The first one is masculinity. If the score is high, the society is really competitive. If the score is low, the society is more feminine. People value private life and family. So in Japan, it's natural that we sacrifice our family and private life for achieving the goal of our organization or team. But it's not natural in Europe, especially in South Europe, like France or Italy. It's super different. That's why many Japanese don't hesitate working until late night, as I'm doing right now. The next one is uncertainty avoidance. You get very low scores, so it means you guys don't hesitate taking risks to get good returns. But it's different in Japan. Most people are risk averse. They don't like changes as far as it goes well. The next one is a long-term orientation. It means Japanese people prefer having a business with the same partner or supplier for many, many, many years. They don't want to change anything as far as it goes well. While the US has a very, low score, maybe lowest in the world, as called as dog years. So those scores are very strong entry barriers for Japan, meaning your competitors work very hard. Sometimes Japanese customers request an unusual thing or over specification in their requirement. But your Japanese competitors say, "Okay, let's do it by the end of this week. We don't sleep until we finish it." So your your competitor is doing like that. This is the first difficulty. The second one is they don't want to take risks. Actually, most of our clients experienced their potential customers requires test again and again, test for the test, like that. So, they are really cautious, especially when they replace the existing products by new ones. So it takes time for making decision for them, and they prefer long-term partnership with their existing suppliers. They usually don't change, but when they try to develop some innovative new products, definitely they have to seek new technologies. In that case, we'll have a chance, but still your competitor, which is their current supplier, has a more stronger advantage. So this is a cultural entry barrier for the Japanese market. And this is the reason why Japan has such culture. Probably most of you guys are familiar with this culture, harakiri, suicide. Of course, it doesn't exist anymore in Japan, but mentally, we still have that kind of culture. Here's a funny story. I studied at the American Business School, and the Indian students said, why Japanese people don't speak openly at the class discussion? But we think, why Indian students ask questions, which answers are clearly written on the textbook? So when we speak something, we have to be 100% confident. Otherwise, we don't want to speak, because we have to be responsible for what we say and what we do on this way. So that's why people don't want to take risks in our society. So this is a very masculine culture in Japan. Fortunately, it doesn't exist, but until 1880, samurais were doing this. So it was just it was not a long time ago. It has changed recently. The next cultural difference is about communication. Low context means people speak clearly and directly. So Germany or Switzerland are located here at the opposite extreme point, but Japan is here. People prefer implicit communication, non-direct way, and important messages are always between the lines. People just imply. So you have to analyze what they really want to say. British is here. I find somewhat similarity with the British way. You guys are sometimes ironic or sarcastic. Unfortunately, I don't understand what is interesting about the British joke. So when you talk to Japan, you have to analyze what they really think. So please do not ask a simple question like, are you interested in our products? They will say yes. Yes, good. Can we have a next discussion on email basis? They say yes, but they don't reply to you. Actually, they often tell a lie, sweet lie, with a sugar coating. So please do not take their answer literally. It's really complicated. And on the presentation, you should not be too confident. Sometimes Japanese people think you are arrogant. So please do not speak like a cowboy. Direct, confident way is interpreted as you are arrogant. So successful salesperson in Japan is always super humble and moderate, calm. So please try to be calm when you have a meeting with a Japanese company. The next cultural difference is about quality control. This is a specification provided by an European company to a Chinese factory in the case they outsource manufacturing these products in China. It's very simple specification. And the next one is provided by a Japanese company. It's almost same products with the left one, but the variable, providing requirements in Japan is like this, because they are super cautious and they want to eliminate any possibilities which might be connected with failure defects, because they need to commit a suicide when they have defects. Of course, I'm joking, but mentally, they have such kind of obsession, so they want to make clear everything. So most of our clients are from the US and Europe, and they are feeling annoyed when they receive this kind of specification from a Japanese company. But if you ignore this, you have no chance to be successful in Japan. So they ask thousands of questions to you, but you should not ignore. I know it's annoying to myself as well, but you have to adapt to this culture if you really want to be successful in Japan. This is our example in consumer markets. I know you have only 2 types of Kit Kat in the US and Germany, but in Japan, I don't know how many, but many types are available. Nestle is originally from Switzerland, I think, at least from Europe, but they are really successful in Japan. They have adapted to the Japanese consumer preference, and now they have very big market share in many segmentations of consumer goods market. The background of this is actually Japanese customers are really arrogant. There's a proverb in Japan: a customer is God, so you should not dare to God. So if you have been to Japan, you have experienced a very high level of service at the local bar or casual restaurants, even in the case that you pay just less than 10 pounds. Service level is very high. The reason is they have been trained very well by arrogant customers in Japan. So this is the background of a high level of service in Japan. So they submit this type of specification to you, and they ask wide range of requests to you. But if you ignore this, you fail. So this is the reality of a customer's preference in Japan. Probably you think Japan is very unique from other Asian countries. This is the background. The reason is simply Japan is always Japan. I know in Europe, you guys fought for many centuries. Sometimes borderline has changed, merged. So as a result, you guys are familiar with different countries' culture and somewhat merged. But Japan is always Japan. Probably it's somewhat similar with the UK because Japan is isolated from the Asian continent. Actually, China, Genghis Khan, tried to invade Japan 1,000 years ago, twice, but the typhoon hit their battleship and Japan was preserved. So in our history, Japan is always Japan, except for these 7 years, just after World War II. At the time, the US governed Japan, but the US was super busy with the Cold War against Soviet, and they withdrew from Japan for allocating resource to the war in Korean Peninsula. So this is just the only exception. 7 years in our 2,000 years history. And another reason is here, it's a samurai era. The government had the isolation policy, which prohibited the international trade. except with Netherlands and China. But they are allowed to enter a small island, which is a free trade zone. So during this period, 250 years, Japan made its culture very unique, super unique from other Asian countries. Before that, Japan was affected a lot from China, Korea, and other Asian countries, but Japan has changed to super unique country. So harakiri was very popular during this period. I'm happy I was not born in this era. So another difficulty or entry barriers about distribution channel. I'd like to explain 3 cases. The first one is multi-layered. You often encounter this type of distribution channel structure in Japan. There are several layers between you and the users. You might think it's inefficient. I agree to your idea, but this is a reality. Sometimes you have several layers like importer, distributor, dealer, retailer, like that. So it's really annoying. This case, our German client had been doing a business with a Japanese small distributor, and they expected this guy's selling to many distribution channels. But it turned out this guy has a virtual exclusivity with this second distributor. It's a gentleman agreement, no documents. But this guy just to import German products and pass it to the second distributors, and they sell to end users. So what they did is, paperwork for importing. They don't do sales. They don't do marketing. They don't have inventories, but they marked up 30 to 40%. I think it's terrible. And this guy just sell to this second distributors. So sometimes this kind of thing happens. So please be careful what this guy is doing. So you often encounter this type of problem. So be careful with what this guy is doing. The next case is I think it's a typical case. This German company received an inquiry from a Japanese distributor by email, and immediately made an agreement and successfully delivered products through this distributor and to end user A. Of course, this German company expects to sell to other customers, but nothing happened. The reality is this distributor relies on heavily this end user A, very loyal to A, which means they hesitate to sell to competitors of end user A. So, which means this distributor is working on purchasing side of end user A, not on your side. So when you have an inquiry from a Japanese distributor, please be careful and their target customers. In this case, actually, you have to develop another distributor selling to this guy or more. So I know it's inefficient, but vertical distribution channel is very popular in Japan. The typical case is cosmetics, house appliances, cars. For example, Shiseido shop sells only Shiseido cosmetics. So this is a very tricky culture about the distribution channel in Japan. The next one is about automotive and construction machinery industry. You might think your distributor make efforts on selling your products to end users. But in this industry, distributor just focus on just-in-time delivery, and they don't do sales because it doesn't make a big difference if they, purchase product from A or your company, because both products have a similar price and similar quality. So in this case, this guy doesn't have a strong motivation to replace supplier A's products by yours. So only one solution is you have a technical discussion with this end user, and after this guy made a decision, they place a purchase order to distributor, and then like this. So in big industries, you can often encounter this model. So in this case, you should not expect they try to sell your products to end users. So I've explained the entry barriers, and finally, I'd like to explain some recommendation to you about our market entry strategy. So as you've known, Japan is one of the most difficult markets to enter in terms of culture, economy, or anything. So most of our clients have been successful in the US and Europe and set Japan as their final destination. So for American company, it's much easier to be successful in Europe and vice versa. And as I mentioned, there are so many players. So that's why you have to be very unique. If you are selling normal products, I don't think Japan is a good target market. And if you are selling very technical products, you need a local salesperson taking care of technical discussion, especially for troubleshooting, because a local distributor doesn't like doing that. I think it's not only in Japan. And if you are selling services, definitely you need a local sales and service person, because nobody speaks English. Of course, you can meet English speakers in their international sales department, but in their manufacturing department or IT department, most of them don't speak English. And consumer goods are very difficult to sell without a strong brand and big budget for branding and promotion. As you've seen the Kit Kat case, most of shelves are packed by famous products in Japan. In addition, the size of shops in Japan is not big. So you need to replace very famous products by yours. And you can't persuade buyer without a clear branding and promotion plan with a decent level of budget. And if you are selling IT or software, if it's for industrial usages like IoT, AI, you should have big opportunities. But if you are selling normal business software like accounting, HR, you have less chances, because working culture and language is different. You have to spend a lot of time and money for localization. So I don't recommend Japan as a destination if you are selling those type of products. And this slide shows our market entry options. I think you have 3 steps. The first one is export through a local distributor. It is a good option for the first step. You don't need to invest in your local entity here. And especially in the case your products don't require high-tech services, this option is very good. But the problem is you can't manage your sales activities, because distributors usually don't disclose important information, including contact information of end users or end user pricing. So if something goes wrong, you never know the reason why. This is the biggest disadvantages of this approach. The second one is business development on outsourcing basis. Actually, main business of our company is supporting this, which means you hire sales and marketing company like us, which do business development on your behalf. It's a good option for products requiring services because distributors don't like providing service or don't like getting into deep technical discussion. And it's a best option or only one option for suppliers to automotive and construction machinery. As I mentioned, distributors in those industries don't do sales. You are expected to do it by yourself. And if you have entered Japan, this option could be really powerful when you are frustrated with the performance of your Japan distributor, because you can see what's going on in Japan through your salesperson. And the final stage is investment, like FDI, M&A, or a joint venture. If you have big budget, M&A could be a powerful option, but it takes time in Japan. Japan is very notorious about the slow decision making, so I don't recommend M&A as your first step of your market entry into Japan. But if you encounter good opportunity, M&A could be a good option. And if you have been successful on business development on outsourcing basis, probably it's a good timing to register your own entity in Japan for hiring your own salesperson. But it requires big money, like between $250,000 US in the first year without any sales, maybe. So if you have millions budget, you can directly go to this, but we usually don't recommend. But we are happy to support your market entry into Japan on any stages in any way. So if you have some inquiries, please send me an email. We are happy to have a discussion how we can help you. On the last slide, I like to offer a special discount about incubation office in Japan. If you want to register your Japan subsidiary, you can use our office in Tokyo. You register your subsidiary in Japan and hire your salesperson, and those things are taken care by our staff, which allows your salesperson focus on sales activities. So I think it's a very convenient model for those who are planning to register a subsidiary in Japan. The monthly cost is just about 1,000 euros. I think it's really, good discount rate. The background is nowadays our staff work remotely from their home, so our office has a big capacity nowadays. So that's why we like to offer this good discount rate. This is the end of my presentation, Andrew. I would like to answer to your questions.
Okay, yes, thank you very much for the presentation. Actually, during the presentation, we have received many questions, and I could answer all these questions, I think, during the presentation. So yeah, okay. I answered most of them.
Do you have any interesting questions that you want to share with all the participants?
If no, maybe as we often get the similar or typical questions from the participants in our past seminars. So maybe I ask just one question from my side. It is that many of people who participated in our seminar ask how much is the setting up a corporation in Japan? And how much is it per year? So Yasushi, do you have any idea how much it costs?
Okay. Actually, we estimated the cost of setting up a subsidiary in Japan in the past. The case is you hire a bilingual sales manager and assistant who takes care of administration and miscellaneous. In that case, at least you have to pay €250,000 on a very thrift way, but it usually reaches to $500,000. And if you prefer, very luxury office in Roppongi Hills or in the center of Tokyo, it could be, close to 1 million. So that's why we don't recommend setting up your subsidiary at the beginning of your market entry. So starting on outsourcing base is most convenient. You can do test marketing and get the feedback from the market. If it goes well, you can make a decision to go further by setting up your business. But actually, it will take time because the culture in Japan is conservative. So, spending a lot of cost every year without sales is not a good idea for mid-sized companies.
Okay, thank you, Yasushi. And now we just got 2 additional questions. First question is, can you help with setting up and managing Amazon and Rakuten accounts?
Okay. Actually, we have some clients helping their business on Amazon Japan because, it's easier as far as you have experience selling on Amazon in the UK or US, because the platform is the same for you to manage that business. In that case, we are happy to help to be a ACP for importing your products to Japan by taking care of paperwork, and also on translation of optimizing your product listing and Q&A with your Japanese customers. But for Rakuten, it requires big costs because Rakuten's model is a shopping mall. So it means you have to set up your own shop. So it requires a decent level of workload. So you have to pay several thousand euros maybe per month. So our suggestion is you start on Amazon first. And if you get a good response from consumers, you can make a decision to extend to Rakuten and Yahoo Japan.
Thank you. Then second question is it possible to give any more details on where you see IoT and AI developing in Tokyo?
Say that again? What?
Is it possible to give any more details on where you see IoT and AI developing in Tokyo? Maybe yes, you can also see the tab on the Q&A.
Okay. You can. We are happy to send the PDF of this presentation, and you can find the figures here.
Yeah, then maybe we can also continue the discussion maybe on the email if you have. Then we are happy to answer.
Yeah.
I
Actually,
hope.
we are happy to estimate our professional fees for market overview of those sectors. Actually, we are not McKinsey. Our professional fee is not very expensive, so affordable for SMEs. So please feel free contacting us.
Yeah.
About that.
Yeah, so I'll contact you later. Thank you very much. Okay, then. Yeah, then we can share the webinar presentation and the recording if you want. So yeah, so unless you haven't sent a message over the Q&A box, please send us an email to ask us to send the presentation, maybe by PDF and also recording. We are happy to do that. Then yes, maybe that's all for now, I think.
Okay. Thank you for participating in our webinar today.
Thank you very much for your time.
Hopefully, some of you guys have a chance to work together with us.
Yes. Okay. So thank you very much again for your time. Then, yeah, then we're also looking forward to receiving the messages or questions if you have. Then again, thank you very much. Then have a
Someone raise a hand.
okay. Yeah. Yes, we are getting thank you messages, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Then thank you very much. Then have a nice day. Thank you. Bye bye.